Have you ever wondered what a Zen Buddhist monk could teach you about copywriting? Yeah, me neither, which is why I am so excited for this week's interview. In just a few moments, my good friend will be up here joining me for an interview. He trained as an actor and singer in New York City. He was a dating and relationship coach. And yes, he lived for 4 years as a Zen Buddhist monk. 10 years ago, he turned to the online marketing and sales world and has since written copy that has generated over $10 million in sales for himself and his clients.
So keep watching.
All right, hey guys, it's Alex, and as you can see, I am not alone in my studio. My incredible friend, Zach Browman, is here. Hey Zach, welcome.
Thank you.
This is the very first guest that I've had in my studio. And it was actually, I had a birthday party last weekend and I was giving Zach a little tour and I showed him, this is the studio, this is where all the magic happens. And he goes, well, I'm in town, let's...
I begged you to be on the show.
You begged me.
And you said no, and then after much begging.
And there was the bribes
relented,
and after all that, then I finally said, yes, you can. No, honestly, this guy is a freaking genius. I've already told you a little bit about what he does and what he's all about, but we figured we'd take this opportunity to get together and talk copywriting. So before he shares the only 3 things you need to write copy that sells, I figured we'd talk a little bit about how we know each other and how you got into this whole crazy world of copywriting.
Yeah, so you and I met in Austin at a marketing summit.
Yeah, it was Traffic and Conversion Summit. Was it the first one or? It
was the first one I went to.
Right.
Which was about 10 years ago.
Right. That was I think the first one I went to as well.
Yeah. And turned out that we both lived in Vancouver.
You lived in Vancouver and I was planning to move to Vancouver.
You didn't live here yet?
Not until 2012.
Right, but we got along like crazy. Mm-hmm. And at the time, I had a business and was just writing copy for my business. Mm-hmm. So that's really how I got started. I had a business that was coaching men and women on better dating and relationship skills, things like conversation, body language, that sort of thing. And then it became really clear to me that the way you succeed is by focusing more on the marketing. I'd already created the content. And then that just led me down a road. From there, I spent the next 6 years hammering out copy, writing, rewriting, testing. Mm-hmm. And then, word got around that the stuff I was writing was converting and making money. And I had some friends that needed some copy done. So I did a little for them and that did really well. And now I don't do a whole lot of freelancing. Mm-hmm. Once in a while I'll work with a friend. I mostly just write for myself, but I've worked in a number of different niches. Yeah.
And I want to pause you right there because you touched on something that I think is so, so important. I get asked a lot how I got into copywriting, how I became a quote unquote copywriter. And your story is really similar to mine in that I have a little bit of a beef in the copywriting industry when it comes to people taking, say, one program or one certification course, and then they call themselves a copywriter when they've never really actually been paid or have any experience copywriting. And how you started was like how I suggest most entrepreneurs start when it comes to copywriting is to write their own before bringing someone on board on their team to help them scale and leverage. But you essentially wrote copy out of necessity for your own business, which was much the same as my experience while I was working at Mind Valley. It was sort of like, well, I'll just sort of figure it out and test it and see if it works. And then it worked. And then I refined and kept practicing.
There's something kind of magical that happens in your brain when those first sales come through.
Right.
And you know that the words I wrote
are selling.
Yeah. People want to buy.
Yeah.
And something sort of clicks in your brain that this is a learnable skill, and that it because before that it seems like this huge gap between like, I got to write some words and people are going to actually read it, and then at the bottom they're going to click buy and they're going to put their credit card number in, and it seems like a pretty daunting task. But when you do it, you realize also it doesn't have to be perfect, and some people are still going to buy, and then you can just improve it. It just really improves your confidence as a copywriter. Yeah.
And I think becoming a copywriter really does require both of just the practice makes perfect, knowing that, and again, this is sort of a misnomer, I think, when it comes to people who hire copywriters, is they're expecting what a copywriter writes to be gold from like the very first, traffic that's sent to it. And that does happen, but it's sort of like the unicorn copy where you're like, wow, okay, that already does really well. But even then there's always room for improvement. So it's sort of a mix of, yes, learn the tactics, learn the strategies, learn what you need to know to improve your copy, but then also practice and get as much experience as you can, whether it be writing for yourself, writing for friends, exactly like how you and I got started.
It's scary to put yourself out there. Yeah. Writing is scary. That's why I actually found it easy when I did stop selling my own things and sold for other people, or stopped selling products that had my face on them. I found it freed me up a little bit to experiment with good copy practices.
Right.
Because I wasn't thinking about, well, how does this, I was just thinking about, what sells, and of course sticking within like what's truthful and what's ethical and what I can feel good about, but less, is this, I think a lot of people get caught up on everything having to be the flagship program. This is going to define me. Everyone's going to see me through the lens of this. And it's just not the case.
Right.
You could put a program on, a fitness weight loss program and then decide, that's not really for me. I want to do something else. A few years later, no one's going to say, hey, you got to trust him. He's the fitness weight loss guy. Yeah. You can try out a few different things.
Absolutely. Yeah. And same with freelance writers who say don't have a business, but want to have a business freelance writing. It's such an amazing skill set to have, because you can play around in a couple of different niches and see what really resonates with you, because not all copywriters are made equal. And I know in my copywriting agency, we focus primarily on personal development and spirituality, because one, that's something I'm really interested in. And two, that's sort of where I got my start and where I've really managed to, improve my skill so that I can confidently say I'm one of the best copywriters in that niche in our space. And so, I'm glad we talked about that, because I think
I just want to jump in. I think the reason why is you don't have to necessarily specialize, and it's something we'll get into when we talk about these things, but knowing your customer is really what makes good copy, and the personal development customer.
I know.
And I've done a lot of dating, sex, relationship advice, and I know what they desire. I know what they, you can always learn more and discover more things, but I know what they fear, what their frustrations are, that sort of thing. And I don't have to start fresh doing a whole new batch of research to try and figure those things out if I'm creating a new piece of copy in that niche. And it's one of those things that, I'm very interested in relationships and sex and dating just because it fascinates me.
You're interested in sex?
I'm interested in it. Well, I think, and especially when relationships, I think that good ones are not, they're kind of rare, and I want to know what makes a good relationship.
Absolutely.
And so that's what I would be doing in some of my free time anyway, is researching that stuff.
Yeah.
And then it all just feeds in.
Absolutely.
Whereas, I could write about, all weather tires or something like that, but I'm not going to be
sex
as
or
invested.
all weather tires.
Right, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But it's so true, because you're talking about what I say a lot of is, write in the area that you're interested in, because the first piece of copy you write will define the second piece, the third piece, the fourth piece. And the next thing you know, all of a sudden you're a copywriter in a particular niche. And you're like, wait, I don't even like all weather tires. So that's a really good tip. But listen, why we're here, why everyone clicked on this video to see this interview is because before we were sitting down talking about what we were going to talk about, because this guy is a wealth of knowledge. He literally sat down with a list and was like, I can talk about this, I can talk about this. So I think we might need to do like a little Zach Browman series.
We'll have to do a few.
But this is just the tip of what you have to offer. We like to joke around a lot, so hopefully you guys are cool with that. But, he came with a whole list of what he could share, and he said something that immediately piqued my interest. He said, well, really, to write copy that sells, all you really need is 3 things. And of course, I'm like, what are the 3 things? Are your 3 things the same as what I think those 3 things are? And we were so on the same page that I thought, yes, let's talk about that, give a few examples, and then maybe talk about how we might be able to go a little bit deeper into the subject and perhaps have a little follow-up.
Start with the tip and then we'll go deeper.
As they say. All right, so what are the 3 things?
Okay, so the first thing, whenever I'm writing a piece of copy, if it's a sales letter or VSL or an email, starts with the promise.
Yeah.
What are you promising them? And a big promise. And promises come in the benefit that they want. And promises come in, they're sort of tiers, right? And ultimately, what everyone wants is to be happy, right? But you can't write a subject line or a VSL, a video sales letter, or a sales letter that's just, here's how to be happy. People have beliefs of what's going to make them happy. So some of the big ones are, I want to make more money. I want to lose weight. I want to have better sex. I want to have better relationships. And then under those, you have other beliefs that they think of what's going to lead to that. So let's take weight loss, for example. Weight loss is an extremely advanced, sophisticated market because it's been around for so long. People have been exposed to so many things. You can't just say the promises of you're going to lose weight. That people have beliefs of what's going to make them lose weight now. So it might be increasing your metabolism. It might be putting on lean muscle mass. I don't know about the keto diet or anything, but increasing ketones, or people have these beliefs. And so your benefit, you can search within, what do they need to get to that ultimate benefit?
Absolutely.
Right? What do they think they need? And how does my product or my service or whatever it is I'm selling? And of course, this is the same thing if you're on Amazon and you're selling, knives, right? The benefit is, sharper knives are great, but the benefit is, that it's going to cut faster. It's going to look sexy in your kitchen. But coming up with a big promise is really the first starting point.
I love that you said that, because you touched on two things that I want to talk about. The first one is market sophistication. You said, losing weight when it comes to the weight loss and the fitness niche obviously is that umbrella benefit, but because the market is so saturated, it's no longer, the sophistication level of it is no longer at a 1. And if you want to know what I'm referring to, you can pick up a copy of Eugene Schwartz's book, Breakthrough Advertising. I actually talk about that in my video on the top 5 copywriting books that you should read if you want to become a copywriter. And I'll link to that somewhere up here. But he talks about market sophistication level, and I like to think of, weight loss. Obviously, it's been around forever. Everyone's wanted to lose weight not since the dawn of time. I think it used to be like sexy to be bigger,
and also survival,
right? And also that you could feed yourself. But losing weight is no longer the benefit that you need to focus on there. You need to go more niche. And so it's in what way can you come up with a big promise that matches the market sophistication level? Meditation was a big one. I know back in the days of me working at Mind Valley, we were launching meditation products that in the early days, it was still quite a low market sophistication level, where meditation was only seen, as something that people did on the side of mountains in Tibet. And now meditation is everywhere. And so it's no longer enough to sell a meditation product to say, we're going to teach you how to meditate, or we're going to teach you how to, start a meditation practice. It's about going deeper. And so I love that you said that. So really paying attention to market sophistication level when it comes to identifying the big promise, but then also looking at what that singular benefit is. And again, I've said this in so many of my videos, but if you try to appeal to everyone, you appeal to no one. And so many people, you ask them, what is their big promise? And they go, well, really, it helps with everything. It helps people be happier, especially in personal development. It helps people be happier. It can help you have better relationships. But no, what is the big thing?
And it should be one. And it should be one through from the ad they, if it's online, from the ad they click on to the, article they read and what I see a lot of people doing is they'll create an ad and then people click on it and they go to an article that's about something in the same niche, but with a different benefit. And then they, some people filter through and click through and they wonder why their conversions aren't very good. And they're like, I'm getting all these clicks. And it's because it doesn't match. And you really have to, and I take a lot of time to come up with that one benefit. Actually, I have a technique that we were talking about called the glass of wine test. That really helps. Oh. With the glass of wine test.
Do we want to know about this? I think we do.
It's pretty fun. Okay, so the glass of wine test is this. We could call it the glass of beer test, depending on your market, who they're into. So you think about your prospect, you think of someone who would buy whatever it is you're selling. And they go out with their friend and they're like, let's go get a glass of wine. And they go and they sit down, they get a glass of wine, and the friend says, all right, what's on your mind? What's going on? And the friend says, you know what? I just wish that, and then you fill in the blank. I just wish I had more money. You know, I just wish I could lose those last 5 pounds. I just wish
my jeans weren't so tight. Or,
I just wish my partner would open up to me more.
I
just wish, my jeans weren't so tight. So there you go, right off the bat. Like that's very specific, and that's the language that they use. And it's funny because when I was doing some freelance, and I was working for an agency once with that did split testing and doing copy. And these corporate clients would have, I'd say, well, what is it that you guys do? And they'd say, we help high visibility individuals differentiate through, and and then I'd say, we talk for a while and I basically say, so basically you help like popular people get more popular. And they're like, yeah. I'm like, okay, let's make that your headline.
Totally.
And then they'd say, oh yeah, we could do that, because that's what jumps out at people.
Yeah.
Is and it actually helps you stand out in a way, because a lot of, especially if you're doing business to business, a lot of business to business businesses are trying to sound more corporate and sound more official, and they're not hitting.
Right.
To have a quick example of this, someone hired me to help with his cover letter, his friend, for his resume.
Right.
And so I asked him, and he didn't have all the qualifications for the job, but I said, who's doing the hiring? He says, it's the manager of this department. He did environmental inspections for, it was for a hydro company. And I said, what are their what's going on in their life? Like, what do they want? And they're like, they just want someone who's going to take care of that, and they're not going to have to worry about it, and they're not going to have to manage you.
Yeah.
And I said, great. So the opening line of your sales letter is, hi, my name is so-and-so, and I'm going to take this off your plate so you don't have to worry about it. It's taken care of, and you can focus on managing the rest of the team.
Yeah.
And we happen to know someone who worked at that company who said they read that one line and they're like, this guy's coming in for an interview.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because he cut through he's not like, I'm a team player who likes to, and I love to.
I have great communication skills. Yeah.
Because you're always talking to an individual. Even when you're talking to a company, you're not talking to a company. You're talking to an individual.
That's a very good point.
Right? So what's that individual? What do they want? And what do they, so that's the big promise. This big promise is, you're not going to have to worry about this.
Yeah.
Because it's a manager. He doesn't want to have another person that has to babysit.
And I mean, it goes to the age-old maxim of, if you can't explain it simply enough, you just don't understand it well enough. And I think that if you don't understand what it is that you're selling in a really clear and concise way, the people that you're selling to aren't going to understand. And the glass of wine test, you want people to basically be able to share what your brand promise is in terms of what they're looking for. And I'm saying brand promise, I realize, because in my head, as you're saying big promise, I'm also thinking brand promise, because I recently read a book called Branding is Sex by Deb Gabor, and I'll link to that somewhere over here. But she talks about brand promise and gave the example, you gave the example of kitchen knives earlier, which made me think of this, is when you think of recipe sites, right? Super high market sophistication level. I mean, there are 1 million recipe sites out there.
And there's so many free resources.
Free resources. Yeah. And so she gave the example in her book about how to have a brand promise that actually differentiates you. And she gave the example of All Recipes versus Epicurious. And she said All Recipes, their whole brand promise is being the kind of the recipe site for the everyday cook, someone who just wants something quick. They're wondering what's for dinner tonight, and they're going to be that resource that they can go to right away, find something simple, and basically find anything they want. Whereas Epicurious was all about, how do you become sort of a rock star chef? How do you impress your friends and family with
very different markets? Very
different market, yet the business model is the same. The big promise is different. So I think that it's just so important that people really hang on to what you're saying with the first thing that every good piece of copy needs is that the big singular promise.
And it can be difficult when you start to know what that is, if it's a new market for you. So you might have to test.
Right.
You might have to test a few and see what people click on and see which emails people respond to.
Absolutely.
And see which YouTube videos people are most attracted to.
Yeah.
I had a friend who was starting a business, and I said, he wanted to write a book, and I said, start a blog.
Yeah.
And whichever blog post gets the most views,
yep,
write a bigger book on it. And that's exactly what he did. He's done very well. Yeah.
Or run some Facebook ads. This is something that we've done at numerologist.com. Run a few Facebook ads and see which ads get the highest click-through rate. And then we mirrored our funnel to match the hook that people were actually interested in.
Because your intuition might be off.
Totally. And that happens all the time. Like, we're not mind readers as copywriters, right? We have to go off of market data. So although we're creative, we still need to, let the market tell us which way to go.
Awesome.
So let's move on to the second thing.
So the second thing, so originally there were just two things, and it was the promise so I added a third thing because it's important, but the second thing is believability.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the work of the copy that you're doing is aimed towards believability.
Mm-hmm.
If people believed your promise, there would be no copy. You just say, lose weight, people would be great. Where do I pay?
Yeah.
You know? And I find like salespeople they can get kind of arrogant, kind of pushy salespeople and say like, when people say, well, they don't have the money, right? Or I don't have the money, to say, well, look, I'm telling you that this is going to make you $20,000. You tell me you can't come up with $2,000 to trade $2,000 for 20.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, if I believe it would 100% work, I would find $2,000 to pay for 20 any day.
Yeah.
Easily. And same thing for most things that people are selling. You're going to find me my dream partner. I'm going to absolutely lose the weight and look the way I want and also be healthy. I'm going to eliminate back pain, whatever it is. If I believe it's true, it doesn't matter what the cost is.
Yeah.
So, there are a number of techniques, and I think you and I can trade off some of our favorite ones
Mm-hmm.
that make that promise more believable.
Yeah, that's so huge. And for those of you who've seen my video on my 3 persuasion principles, if you haven't, I'll link to it up here. I talk about the biggest mistake that so many copywriters make is believing that their audience can achieve the results that they're selling. And if they don't, it doesn't matter how great the offer is. You could be like, you'll make $1 million and all you'll pay for this is $100 and people still won't buy it. And you're like, what's going on? This offer is amazing.
Why would you not pay $100 for $1 million?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, think about all the reasons why you wouldn't believe an offer, right? Either you've seen it before and you've not had results, or you've tried it before and you haven't had results.
Too good to be true.
It's too good to be true. And that happens a lot. Sometimes actually when you increase a price point, it does better in terms of revenue because people are like, oh, that's actually more aligned with what I would pay. If something seems too good to be true.
To accomplish a big goal, there's no way it's $5.95 to solve all these problems. That's a great point.
And so one of my favorite ways to do this is obviously overcoming objections. Mm-hmm. And, as copywriters, if you have access to any sort of consumer data from your clients or businesses to be able to see why people haven't purchased from you. This is actually something that we're testing right now on our thank you page at numerologist.com. We're asking people what nearly stopped you from buying. And by doing that, we're really getting a look into what almost made them not give us their money. I mean, thank goodness they did. But if they say, I didn't believe numerology could help me, or the price was too high, or whatever reason it might be, that gives us valuable information to go back and use those throughout the copy that I write to overcome those objections.
I love that.
Thank you.
One of my favorite ways, the favorite sort of techniques for believability, and this works really well in a saturated market or sophisticated market, and you're gonna know all about this from breakthrough advertising.
Right.
For a sophisticated market is mechanism. Mm-hmm. The mechanism by which they achieve the benefit, because you likely don't have an original benefit or an original promise. Mm-hmm. If you do, you're on shaky ground because no one's out there searching for it or knows it exists, or, you think it would be great to be the first person selling weight loss, but they probably had a tough time because people didn't even know they wanted to lose weight at that point. It was possible. On the other hand, it was easy because all they had to say is send me $20 and I'll show you how to lose weight.
Yeah.
Right. But my favorite thing is to go into a market that's really crowded, that has a lot of people competing, and find a way to set myself apart. And the best way is through what we call mechanism. Mm-hmm. So mechanism is, so lose weight through intermittent fasting, keto.
Yeah.
But even those have their mechanisms.
Yeah.
Right. So within that, there's a mechanism, because now that becomes saturated and there are 1,001 keto things.
Yeah.
And now it's it's something that makes it easier, faster, more powerful, more effective, more believable.
Yeah.
Right. This is the only one that has, actually, toothpaste companies are always doing this, right?
Yeah, get whiter teeth. It'll help with sensitivity.
Those are new benefits, but then they say it's the only one with the ingredient,
active brushing.
Active release fluoride molecules, right?
Totally.
And that's their mechanism that says, why should this one be different than all the other ones that have promised something else? So that's one of the,
and that's huge in personal development as well. And actually something that I'll say to a lot of people who, I'll have coaching clients that'll be like, I don't know why my stuff isn't selling. And I go, okay, great. What is it? And they're saying, oh, it's just this audio, program where I coach people through these concepts. And I go, okay, who's your audience? They go, oh, really everybody. What's your core benefit? Oh, it's just like, they'll be happier. And then I'm looking at this and I'm going, okay, if you don't want to niche the audience, if you don't want to niche the benefit, then you have to niche the method or the mechanism or the technology to make it stand out.
Right.
And I talk about this a lot in my video on how to find a profitable niche. And I actually have 4 questions that you can go through to really try to get clear on what that is. Because if you want to talk to everybody, okay, that's fine. If you want to have a benefit that's a bit broader, that's fine. But you need to find another way to niche. And that's huge.
Specific promises are more credible.
Absolutely.
Right?
That
if
is
you
true.
If you go to the pharmacy and they say you have a headache, and they say we have headache medicine and stomach and foot and what, or we have this one that just cures everything, foot, stomach, headache, everything. You're going to choose the headache one.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, isn't it funny how when you have a sore shoulder, let's say, and you go to the medicine cabinet and I'm like, oh man, all I have is a leaf for sinus relief. It's all the same stuff.
Right.
But maybe it's one more active ingredient.
There's a picture of a guy with
but it's not
you're
niche
that's for the left shoulder.
Yeah, exactly. But it's so true. It's because people are looking for help on their specific problems. And so I 100% agree. And I think, the more niche you can get on all of those fronts, the better. Okay, so
some other ways to increase believability.
Yeah.
Story, telling stories. I think one of the conflicts I had when I started, because I was selling a lot of information products, online courses, and that sort of thing. And the course creator wants to present themselves as an expert, but they want to show that their program is going to get results for ordinary people.
Right.
And so there's a tension between, if you're, again, weight loss is an easy one, but if you're, look like a model and you say, look, I've been working out for 20 years. I studied exercise science. I studied this. I've been working, every, 6 days a week, and I trained with this coach, and these are all my credentials. And guess what? This one technique made me ripped. They're not going to believe it. They're going to say, yeah, it worked for you who studied these 20 things.
Yeah. And
so you have to sometimes positioning yourself more as hey, it was an accidental discovery. I wasn't an expert. I met an expert and they taught me these things, but I got the results relatively quickly.
Yeah.
Or telling stories of clients. And when I say story, it doesn't necessarily, a story can be 1 sentence or 2 sentences. But yeah, story increases. It's just, you've done a lot of, I'm sure, research on storytelling, and we're just wired to draw conclusions from stories. That's the primary way that we learn. Yeah. And so story is another way to increase believability.
Absolutely. And I mean, through case studies, social proof, we've talked about that before, the importance of having social proof, but I've even effectively used, stories that have happened in history that, are more myth or legend even, to be able to really connect with the reader. And of course, you're always very open about that, where you say, this didn't happen to me, but I've heard about this. And I'm not talking about weight loss anymore, which I think is a niche that does need very specific results. But in personal development,
Cleopatra.
These are ancient philosophies that have been used in this regard or in that time. And people just respond well to story.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, because confirming people's existing beliefs is a way to increase believability.
Right.
And if you're selling to people that, are highly conservative, then you're going to, confirm some conservative beliefs.
Absolutely.
But one prevailing belief is a belief in ancient wisdom.
Yeah.
Right? I don't personally have that one. An appeal to science and scientific research works more for me in my market, but other markets are like, look, there's this 2,000-year-old, text that says this, and that becomes evidence that it's more believable. Yeah. So one thing I think is really important as a copywriter or marketer is to be really honest with yourself about when you buy. Notice when you're in that state where you're desperate to buy, and say, what is it that kind of led to that? It's funny, because I had a friend got into online marketing before me, and he asked me, he said, hey, imagine there was a website and you couldn't even see the website unless you entered your email address. Would you do it? I said, absolutely not. That's the silliest thing I've ever heard. Sure enough, as I got learning, I realized it's called a squeeze page.
Right.
And I'd done it like a dozen times.
Yeah.
I said I would never do it, but I'd absolutely done it. And so it's a similar thing with testimonials or endorsements. When I was writing copy for dating site relationships, but I was studying marketing and copywriting, this sort of thing. I went to I went to a sales page, and the first thing it had was an endorsement from a personality that I knew and trusted. Mm-hmm. I stuck with that website. I don't remember whether I actually bought, but it worked. I realized, the difference between this one and someone else making the same promises is, look, this person endorses it, this person, I know these people, I know they put out good things. So, you have to be really honest with yourself. And that's, I think, what's made me a better marketer is paying attention to my own buying behavior. And because we get kind of irrational, that feeling like, oh, I got to have this, or I'm clicking behavior. What have I got to click on? What was it about that made me want to click on it?
And creating that authority. I think now, we're marketers, right? So I think when we land on a sales page, or at least in the past, mm-hmm. we'd be like, oh, can we even trust those testimonials? I think the good thing about the industry now is that things are really changing. And I've talked about this, the importance of transparency and authenticity. And, the FTC is really cracking down on people who aren't living up to those expectations. And so being able to use authority, credibility, stories, all of that to build your case in a way that I think now more than ever the market is expecting.
There's one more element of believability I wanted to cover, because it covers a whole range of products that kind of aren't similar to what we usually sell. And that's demonstration, product demonstration. I saw, especially if you have something dramatic. So my thing is, if I can find a new benefit, that's going to be my hook. If not, I'm going to find a new mechanism that delivers the same benefit. If not, I'm going to find a way to demonstrate it. So I saw a commercial for bulletproof glass, and the CEO of the company comes in and says, hi, I'm the CEO of the company. I'm going to go sit in that car, and that guy's going to take a machine gun and shoot the windshield. You watch all the way through, and you believe. He doesn't need a mechanism. He doesn't need to explain the new molecular structure of the glass. He doesn't need testimonials. Right. You're like, sold. If you want bulletproof glass, sold. So sometimes just demonstrating a product, and I said things on Amazon, knives, whatever. If you've got some infomercials are just product demonstration. If you can do it in a dramatic, exciting way,
it sells for you. Which is the most important thing about believability is, we talked before about it doesn't matter how great your offer is, if it's believable, people will buy it. When you can really think about believability as being one of the most important parts of your sales message, it does the selling for you. And then all you have to do is authentically present the offer and people buy it. And you don't have to use all of the hypey, sales tactics or anything like that. Sure you can. And, I'm a big fan of direct response marketing tactics as well. But, when you have believability, your offer sells for you and you don't have to try so hard.
And that's where I think, and I don't talk a lot about branding. Most of what I do is direct sales, meaning someone clicks on the website having never heard of us before. They go through a sales letter, they do sales letter, and they end up buying at the end, and that starts the relationship. But if you've already delivered results for someone, there's your believability right there. If you already have a relationship with them. So that's what branding is to me, is less the colors for your website and the logo. It's more the, hey, she put out a program on, how to, cook and make 5-minute recipes. And I did it, and it worked, and I loved it. So now when she came out with her program on, Epicurious, some other thing, I have no question that it'll work.
Yeah, and she's speaking my language, and she knows what I need, and exactly. Yeah, so. That's awesome. I think everything that you're talking about right now is so cool. One other tactic that I got from Robert Cialdini's book, Persuasion, which is sort of the sequel, I guess you could say, to Influence, which again is one of my top 5 favorite books that you should read if you want to become a copywriter. But one really great way to increase believability early on in a relationship with a prospect is to admit a flaw or admit something that isn't perfect about you or your product. I always think of Buckley's, it tastes like crap, but it works, or whatever the tagline is. Yeah. That is so genius, because not only is it succinct and you know exactly what you're getting yourself into, but the fact that they've admitted something that's possibly negative about themselves immediately increases believability and trust. Yeah. So trust is a huge part of that, right? So, again, you don't want to have it be completely contrarian to what it is that you're trying to sell. Like, I'm a shitty copywriter, but you should definitely join my copywriting and coaching program. But there's ways that you can do that.
Coming back to weight loss, for a while, the market was lose weight in your sleep, do it easily. And that became so unbelievable. Right. And the market became so sophisticated that P90X and you're going to kill yourself. You're going to hate yourself for 9 months.
Yeah.
But it's going to work. But you're going to look like
banging.
this for sure.
Yeah.
But like, it's going to be difficult. It's not, and not every market is ready for that.
Yes.
You know, not every market is ready for that. And I think that's where people get into trouble swiping or looking at the marketing of this, you know, of this, you know, so you could take that and say, oh, I'm going to be the P90X of my industry and say, you know, it's not easy, but it works. And
might not work.
Everybody else is still saying it's easy and they're making more sales than you are because it's still believable. So you have to, you know, when it's ready, when the market's ready, when it's heard that enough. Sorry, one related thing to what you were talking about with the admitting a flaw is addressing their skepticism. Yeah. Just saying, hey, I know this sounds
crazy.
It sounds unbelievable. I wouldn't believe it either. And encouraging them also to think for themselves. You know, you don't need to believe me.
Here's what other people have said.
Here's what other people said, or I'm going to show you how it works. I'm going to show you the scientific proof, and that's, you know, and that'll, you know, keep people hooked. And again, I've had, I didn't think of it as a tactic, but I followed people that say, look, don't take my word for it. Like, this is, think for yourself and do your research and that sort of thing. And it has the opposite effect of, oh, he told me to go do my research. I'm not going to do my research.
Totally. They're like, oh, wow, if he trusts me or if he trusts his offer enough that he's okay with me actually leaving and going and doing research, it must be good.
It must be fine. Might as well buy.
Yeah. All those subtle things are really important.
Exactly. And there are more. We could go on forever.
Yeah, actually, he has a whole list of things. And at the end of this video, we're going to talk about maybe something. We just came up with this idea right before we hit record, but a way that if you guys were interested to go a little bit deeper into these concepts and learn some more practical strategies on how to use it in your copy. But let's move on to tip number 3, because this is a short one, but it's an important one. And it is just attention. You have to get their attention. As I said, originally, my sort of bigger concept was promise and believability. That's everything. But of course, you have to not only get their attention in the beginning, but continue to re-engage their attention throughout. What I've sort of, my bread and butter has been video sales letters. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people don't know what they are, but there's these 30 to 45 minute videos that people land on having no idea what they're in for. And I make sure that they watch right to the end. Yeah. And at the end they buy. Which is hard to do. Like, we're talking literally, I mean, they don't even have the ability, or they could leave the page, of course. They could leave the page. It's the equivalent of street performing to me. Yeah. Street performing, people are walking by and they can just keep watching. So you've got to keep hooking their attention. Yeah. Hooking their attention. I love that, because one of the things I talk about a lot is that we're in the attention and the retention business. Yeah. And people say a lot that, people's attention spans have gotten shorter. I actually disagree with that statement. What I think is what's actually changed is the increase in easy and available options out there with the simultaneous decrease in people's tolerance of crappy content. Mm-hmm. And so I call that the Netflix effect, right? If you start watching a Netflix show and it's not like, you're not into it, you can move to another very good, high quality show like within a matter of seconds. Mm-hmm. And so you can still have people watch 20, 45-minute video sales letters if you can keep their attention. Absolutely. It's funny you mentioned Netflix, because a lot of screenwriting courses are teaching this old model I've seen, that the first 5 minutes you set up the world and everything's going great and then something happens. We don't have 5 minutes for everything to go well. And the model I like that I use because I use a lot of stories in these videos, it always opens with, you're standing on the edge of a cliff. Oh, holy shit, yeah. Standing on the edge of a cliff. And there's loads of movies like this as well. So it opens up and he's on the edge of a cliff and the cops are coming in the door and there's a fire below and then cut. How did I get here? Yeah. And now we're going to go back and tell the story. And now there's enough interest to know how we got there. I love that. And it's funny because I actually showed my kids a movie from I was like, my kids are 9 and 7. I was like, Back to the Future, you guys got to watch. Because I showed them Home Alone, they loved it. I was like, let's watch Back to the Future. It's still a great movie. It's a classic. Mm-hmm. It's very slow paced compared to movies now. Right. Because you would sit in the theater and wait for the next thing to happen. You were trapped. You're captive. You're a captive audience. Yeah. And now you got to hook attention. You got to rehook it.
and you have to read your own copy. I think Eugene Schwartz talks about this as well. You have to go through and read it and think, where am I drifting off? Where am I not?
Where am I losing interest?
Where do I feel like, okay, I'm going to, and, so you can do that through teasing, and the reason why I kept this attention last, rather than having it first, even though it's kind of the first thing that you need, is because promise and believability come into what hooks their attention.
Right.
And that's usually the best, for headlines and that sort of thing, just right off the bat.
Yeah.
Some combination of those two. If it's a market that can just handle a new promise, if you have a new promise, use it. Or a promise, again, train your dog through, bananas.
Yeah.
The banana method.
The banana. I've heard of the banana method.
It's insane.
It's huge.
Yeah,
but I think, again, the difference between great copy and not so great copy is written in such a way that every sentence literally forces you to have to read the next sentence or listen to the next sentence if it's a VSL to know what's happening. And so it's sort of a constant, open loop and future pacing and doing things that really get people to be like, oh my gosh, I need to know what's going to happen next. Yeah,
I also think about buying myself time. And I did a piece of copy recently where I realized, the attention span was, they were going to be very distracted and skeptical. And one thing that's happened in my industry recently is people teasing and then not delivering. And I really have a problem with that ethically.
Right.
It works for sales for now, but people get really jaded because they say, I'm going to teach you exactly what to say to your husband to make him, fall back in love with you and never look at another woman again. Or the only 3 words you need to say to get your ex back. And there's no 3 words. Yeah. It's a half-hour video with no 3 words. Yeah. And then they say, oh, if you buy the product, you get 3 words. And in the product, there's no 3 words. They count on people forgetting. Yeah. And so there's this promise and then don't deliver promise. Horrible way to start a relationship with the customer. No kidding. Again, there's people out there making money doing it. But I wanted to, I saw an ad and, I wanted to create something where I delivered it. So I said, hey, in 60 seconds, I'm going to give you these 3 things. And then I started a timer in the corner. This is an open loop. Yeah. A little stopwatch and a tick and a countdown on the screen from 60. And I was like, now I have 60 seconds to tell them who I am and build credibility and do some things that I know they need to do to increase believability and then I'll give them the content. And then by the time I got to the 60 seconds, they wanted to know more. I did deliver what I said I would, but I'd already opened up another question. Right. So I'm going to tell you this, and then I'm going to tell you what to do about it. Yeah. And at the end of this video, you're going to get... Yeah. So, but I felt, it worked because I bought myself those 60 seconds. I delivered on the promise. I teased them, but then I delivered on the tease. This is like, what you're saying is everything I think needs to happen with copywriting. Yes. Like, you can use sales tactics authentically, ethically, that work as well as deliver so much value in advance. Yes. Make sure that people leave your VSL better off than when they landed there. I agree. Which I think should be the mission of any piece of sales copy is to add value first to make sure that even if someone doesn't buy your product, they didn't feel like that was a giant waste of their time. Absolutely. And you can even be honest about it. And I've done that in email promos. Said, look, it's a half-hour video. At the end, it's going to sell you something. Right. But there's going to be a lot of great content along the way, and you're going to learn something. And even if you don't buy, you're still going to want to check it out because you're going to get some valuable things out of it. And we do this because obviously it's here to sell something. Yeah. I love that level of frankness and honesty. And well, the marketing's so sophisticated that you hear the word webinar now and maybe you think you're going to get sold something and most of the time you're right. And I think that I think it's just being upfront about it. I have a lot of friends who are really struggling with this right now because they've built up an audience through social media, and now they're trying to leverage that audience to actually, really build their business, and they're getting a lot of pushback from them when they're asking for money. And so there's a way to do it that is really authentic and to say, hey, look, guys, this is my business. So if you find this valuable, I hope you do buy, but if you don't, that's cool too. But just so you know, this is what I do and I will offer something. And if you find it valuable and you want to pay for it, that would really mean a lot to me. I mean, I love that. That's so authentic, right? And I think people get it now that they're like, yeah, of course, gone are the days of people expecting that they can just get everything for free. Although there is a ton of valuable free content out there. And if that's more your thing, then
consume all the free content in the world. Go for it.
Yeah. And I don't want people, I want people to be helped by this content.
Yeah.
So if somebody can't afford to buy a program, well, maybe this can get you started and you can, Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
I love it. Well, those are the 3 things.
Yeah, there's so many more. The attention, all these things, I have about 20 more different
examples
ways
and
to,
tactics.
especially hooking attention. I had I gave a talk on that recently on the different ways to open loops and tease and cliffhangers. And
so this is something that we were talking about. Would you be interested in doing a training with me, like online? Because obviously if you guys are super interested in this, we'll put together like a little sign up page and people can click the link below in the description and join us.
I would love to. Maybe people in the comments can say what they're most interested in learning about.
Yeah, so let's do that, guys. So we're going to put a link below in this description to join Zach and I on some sort of copywriting training. It'll happen probably like on Zoom or something like that. Totally free. We might sell you something at the end. We don't know. But we will wait to hear back from you on what you're most interested in learning about, whether it be on how to hook attention, ways to create brand promise, ways to create believability, a mix of all 3, anything that you're interested in learning about.
Or
just comment
specific,
below.
whether it's emails, landing pages, squeeze pages.
Yes.
A specific type of copy you want to learn about.
I love that.
As Alex and I were saying before, we both love copy psychology.
Yes.
I just could talk about this for
Me
ages.
too.
But I love then how to apply it, the tactics and
Yeah.
and examples and then templates, because I think that really helps people get started.
Yep.
When they have okay, this is great all in theory. Now I've got to sit down and write an email, and I have to keep in mind promise and believability and what goes where and what's the sequence.
It can be overwhelming.
So I think that, you guys let us know or let Alex know, and I'm happy to come
Yeah,
back and
thank you.
it's a blast.
Yeah, I think this is awesome. So comment. So a few things. Here's your to-do list. Like this video below if you found it helpful. And if you like this style of video, obviously this is the first time I've had a guest in my studio, which by the way, it's like 1,000,000 degrees in here right now. So
It's the sweat shop.
Prop out the sweat, Ted.
Sweat shop.
And also, if you want to join our upcoming training, click the link in the description and sign up. That's all we could really tell you right now, because we're going to wait to get your feedback in the comments below once you let us know what you're specifically interested in learning about, and then we will hop on an hour call. Zach lives over on Vancouver Island, so it'll be online.
Or I can come. I'm here all the time.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out. But you guys, until then, that is all we have for you today. Check back next week for a new copywriting tutorial. And thanks so much for watching.
Thanks for watching.
Bye.
Bye.
There's more space.
Ted's going to be... Now I'm nervous. And Ted's
Ted's going to be watching everything.